So as Shasna said, I am the coordinating producer at FRONTLINE, and I am helping the series dive into VR. And I have to apologize, I am a long-form journalist, so getting this under 10 minutes was really hard, okay? So I'm gonna go as fast as I can to really get through all of this. All right, so we actually got back into VR back in 2014. Our executive producer, Rainey Aronson, decided to do a fellowship at MIT's Open Doc Lab to really learn about some new emerging storytelling technologies. And as a filmmaker, she knew right away this is the one that she wanted to dive into. And so today, what I'm going to focus on are some storytelling and journalism challenges that we've been facing, and there are many of them. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit about the series for any of you who may not be as familiar with FRONTLINE. So at FRONTLINE, we've been producing documentaries for over 30 years, and we've made more than 500 films, which is all to say that we have been doing visual journalism for a very long time. And I'm just curious, so how many here have seen a FRONTLINE film before? That's not bad, huh? Okay. And what about one of our 360 films, or even heard about that we were doing them before today? Okay, a couple. Well, we've really made a big push over the last few years to really experiment with form and telling stories in new ways. And we ask ourselves all the time, what's the best way to tell this story? And now, it might be VR. So, this is our very first project, and so it's very much an experiment and a work in progress, but we partnered with Secret Location, which is a really terrific interactive shop, and also Columbia University's Tao Center on this one. And at the helm was one of our most talented, tech-savvy filmmakers, Dan Edge, and even he was thrown quite a few wrenches in the field. And I was going to show you a clip from this, but just for the sake of time, I'll show you a clip from the next one instead. So this is our second foray. Oh, no, I'm gonna have to go by. So yeah, this is our second foray into VR. And this we did with Columbia University's Brown Institute and a trio of young reporter filmmakers, Marcel Hopkins, Ben Moran, and Evan Wexler. And they really risked their lives to go to South Sudan. It was a time when it was an escalation in terms of the conditions for journalists, but they went there to really show you what life is like for the people who are undergoing a famine. So I'm going to show you just a little clip from this, and we've captured it in 2D, so just want to point that out. Okay. Oh, how do I just hit play? Yeah, great.
This plane is taking food to remote villages in South Sudan's lowland swamps. It's the rainy season, and roads are washed out. The only way to get food here is to drop it from the sky.
So again, you have to see it in a headset for the full immersive experience. But here is what's at the heart of it all, right? Story and journalism. So this is what I want to focus on. So basically, no one said pioneering is going to be easy, and so we've encountered definitely a fair number of challenges along the way, and I want to focus on these three big ones for us. And so what do I mean by a frameless first approach? By that, it's thinking what is going to be better because of the 360 view or the lack of a frame. And actually, I want us to take a look at another medium. So let's take animation, for example. So my professor, my animation professor in college, really drilled this point home to us. So there was one day in class where you do your standard, you're gonna paint a lifelike bowl of fruit, right? And his point is, sure, but in this day and age, you can take a photo of that bowl of fruit. You can take video of that bowl of fruit. So you have to ask yourself, what does animation afford you that realism doesn't? And so hopefully most of you, have seen a Wile E. Coyote cartoon before. And so this will be really short, but I just want to show you this to make a point. Right. So you can defy the laws of physics, right? And it's so much harder to do that in other mediums. So it's about asking us for VR, why is this going to be better in VR? What about this lack of frame is going to work to our advantage? And so I think something that was really so successful about that food drop sequence that you saw, and again, you don't get the full magnitude of it without seeing it in an immersive way, it's that it mimics real life and it takes advantage of that lack of frame. In real life, if you hear a plane behind you, you're instinctually going to look up, follow the trajectory of the plane, and it's the same thing with the bags. The bags are up in the air, and then they fall to the ground, and the water splashes up. You really bust out of that typical frame, and so it works really well. And I think for us, especially as the shine wears off, and it is wearing off. Right now, people are getting away with, oh, cool, it's 360, look around. But I think story is going to become king, and for us to be able to do really, really good journalism, we're going to have to hold our feet to the fire and ask ourselves that question. And then the other thing that I want to talk about really quickly is just narrative and context. So our job as journalists is to provide information, context, oftentimes narrative. And for us, especially with VR, we really aspire to do more than just take you to an incredible place and let you spin around and take in the scenery. But adding that narrative and building in that context is definitely a challenge, especially when people are trying to process so much visual stimuli at once. And I actually read this little experiment that was done where they had people view with a 360 range, and then they had 180 worth of vision and 90 degrees worth of vision. And when people were watching with full 360 to take in, they couldn't remember the central character's name, And I think there's just something about like the cognitive overload, so we have to come up with really, really great storytelling techniques to overcome that. And so we've been playing with narration pacing, making sure that you have time to absorb stimuli, text on screen, so you're hearing a character's name, you're seeing a character as a name as well, and a multitude of other things, but I think there's a lot more creativity to be had on that front, which I think is really actually an exciting challenge for us as journalists, to not just create something that's experiential, but that still has people engaged and caring. You hear about that word, but walking away with a better understanding of an issue as well. And so every journalist's friends, right, are first person and primary sources, critically important to all of us as journalists. But again, in a 360 world, there's a lot more challenges. Like, for example, interviewing, you have to be outside of the room. Heaven forbid you're doing an international story, and now not only do you have to be out of the room, but your translator has to be out of the room. You have to get that perfect take, because again, you can't just cut up sync and go to B-roll or a second camera. So there's just more challenges when you really are trying to pull out that narrative, that context. And there's definitely solutions that are happening. Our friends at Secret Location actually are developing this thing that they call the Interatron. And it basically is a device that enables you on a screen for the subject to be able to see the interviewee, and so that there is some of that rapport, but it's still another, piece of tech. It's not the same as a body-to-body conversation. So another technique that we've been using in the field is making sure when you have the camera and the rig set up, you sit underneath, like by the rig, and then make sure you get like a plate shot to basically Photoshop out the interviewer. But again, oftentimes, because of this access, this rapport, that's when you get the really good stuff. So there's some challenges to that. And then there's the issue of using primary sources, anything from video to stills, video from security cameras, audio, which are so, again, important to us as journalists. But using them in a way in 360 that's not going to detract from the immersive world that you are trying to create. And I think audio is a really great tool to use, and Nani and Emblematic Group have been at the forefront of that. It just takes a lot less manipulation to make it work. But I think, there's still going to be footage filmed in this 2D way that are critically important when we're telling stories that happened in the past. So new ways of approaching that so that we can still use them to give context and build narratives. And so, yeah, we're trying to take all of these lessons, and it's a new form. No one has all the answers, but we're trying to take these into future projects. And so this is one that we have in the works with Secret Location. We haven't mentioned it until now, but this is going to be part of a larger reporting effort in collaboration with NPR on the business of disaster relief, asking some really tough accountability questions. And then we took one slice of that and we said, okay, well, what story is going to work best and lends itself to being told in this 360 way. And so we're going to follow a couple who made the fateful decision to stay behind on Superstorm Sandy. And I think for us, it's easy to say, well, why'd you stay? Why would you ever do something like that? And hopefully this gives a little bit of explanation as to why that might be. And then we're really excited to be partnering up with Emblematic Group to really explore that walk-around VR that Jamie was talking about. We think that has huge potential for journalism, and so we are rolling up our sleeves, thanks tonight, and diving in on that. And I just want to leave you with one last quote that I thought was really fitting, given the skepticism around this new form, especially in regards to journalism. And this was back in 1926. And a reporter was invited to the first live TV demonstration. And this is what he wrote. The image as transmitted was faint and often blurred. It has yet to be seen to what extent further developments will carry Mr. Bard's system towards practical use. So TVs, as we know, are widely adopted. The tech got better. And you know what? People had a new source of news, but people today also still turn to papers and radio and books, maybe read different incarnations of them. So I don't think there's a wiping out of mediums that are going to happen, but I think it's pretty exciting to be on the front row while we wait to see if VR makes it into practical use. So thank you.